Everybody went quiet.
What's that?
I don't know.
We all get quiet.
Yeah.
So Lola, you're at your tasting room, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Where are you located?
We're actually not far from Randy, Red Souls. We're just off of 46 West and Booker Road.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, just past Niner and past Oakdale and that first left.
Okay.
And also / Old Creek Road too.
Yeah, it used to be Old Creek Road.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Changed it in 2008.
Is that what?
Yeah. I still get mail for Old Creek Road here, but we weren't here in 08, but we still get it.
You know, works.
Yeah. Do you mind getting me just a glass of water? Actually, you can just pour some of mine into the glass. Thanks. I'm gonna want it in between.
Facebook has a new way of going live that you have to actually input some information each time. So it takes 30 seconds longer. So.
It says now streaming live on Facebook.
There we go. We are now streaming live, and we've got a bunch of people that have joined us already on the Zoom side of things. So good stuff. I'm sure we're going to see some of our regulars there, hopefully. But we'll wait until a few numbers get up there.
Sure.
On the Facebook side of things, because it lags. It's I don't know, maybe 30 seconds behind us on the interface. So cool.
Technology. You gotta love it.
Right? Oh, Manu. Buongiorno, Manu.
Oh, Manu.
And Steve and Martha Hewitt checking in from Columbus, Ohio. Thank you again for joining us. And anxious to raise your sleeves for the soonest availability of the vaccine, you and me both. Happy to say my wife is going to be one of the first here in our county to get one. She works for county health department. She's on the front lines pretty much. So, good stuff there. I'm glad that for that for her. So right on. We've got a hello Lola from Adrian Kroc.
Hi, Adrian.
All right, let's get going. We've got a lot to talk about today. So we'll jump in. Hey everyone, Chris Toronto from the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance. And thanks for coming to hang out again with us on this Paso Wine Zoom Hangout. Today, the show is called Sweet Wine O' Mine. It is all about sweet wines. I think I was joking with Kevin the other day about how with sweet wines, it's probably kind of like your first introduction to wine. Oftentimes it's the sweet stuff, you know, you're tapping into something that's sweet, that's, well, in college inexpensive, maybe like Ballatore or whatever it could have been back then. And then later on, your palate maybe matures a little and you're introduced to some dry wines, some dry white wines, and then red wines. And then somewhere along the way, you find that those sweet wines that you started off with may not have been the real deal, but then you discover the real deal and you really settle into enjoying what those wines are all about and appreciating them for what they are. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, and including a few different styles of how sweet wines are made. I have three great panelists today that are going to be talking about that, but they also have other wines. It's not that they only do sweet wines, but it is something that they all excel in. So I want to take a moment though to have all of them introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Randy because he is on my left on the screen, so it makes it easy. Randy, hello, welcome.
Hey, I'm Randy, and I'm from Red Souls Winery, the owner, and well, actually, my wife owns it. Been married for 50 years, so. But we have been here in Paso for 33 years, growing grapes, and started the winery in 2004, and what I'm going to present today, our Monkey Shine, was actually the very first lot was made in 2004. and we go from there. But we also are a distillery and and growers. So that's our first love.
Right on. Thanks, Randy. Red Souls is located over there on 46 West. As you're kind of leaving the flat part after you've passed Niner, and it's over there as you start to climb and get into the hills of the Willow Creek district and the like. So Kevin Willenborg with Vina, Robles, Vineyards and Winery. Hey, Kevin, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Welcome everybody. Yeah, no, I'm Kevin Willenborg. I'm the winemaker for Vina Robles Winery. I've been here since 2012. Vina Robles first purchased our owners first purchased property back in 1997 here in Paso Robles. Got the winery going in the early 2000s, producing wine, and built a tasting room in 2007. I came on board in 2012. We have a new winery production facility we built in 2018 and been making wine here ever since. Some great little features. For me, I've been in the industry I think this was my 37th harvest in the industry. So various places I've worked in Napa Valley and Bordeaux, up in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia. The grapes don't know they're that far north, and you can do some decent things. And down in Santa Ynez Valley, I've worked for a few years there. But I'm happy to be here in Paso Robles. I think I'm here at a great time. We have the ability to produce world-class wines. I am confident of that, which brings me to this area. But it's also it's a good quality of lifestyle too, and just some great people as well.
Right
so I look into getting into talking about some of these stickies, late harvest. I'm pretty excited and about some of these wines, and maybe talk a little bit later about some of the other stuff we do too.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kevin. And Lola Glossner with the Paso Port Wine Company, but also a couple other brands. Hey, Lola.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having us today. This is going to be a fun little hour session we're doing here. So my name is Lola Glossner. My husband and I, Steve, own Paso Port Wine Company actually we're in Templeton. It's just one street away from Paso Robles, right off of 46 West. We do specialize in fortified port style wines, as well as some nice table wines, and we have a distillery as well on site. Steve's been here in the region making wines going on 3 decades just about. So he's had quite a long career here, doing from table wines to ports to now distilled products as well. So we also have liqueurs, which are sweet as well, which is our distilled spirits as well. So they kind of fall into the sweet fortified. They are made with brandy, but they do fall into that kind of sweet category as well. So I'll talk a little bit about that later as well. But I wanted to just say hi to everybody and thank you for joining. And we look forward to having this session today.
Yeah, right on. So Lola, part of this show was kind of inspired by your brand, because I was thinking to myself, okay, well, here comes Christmas, here comes the New Year's. We have this love affair of sweets throughout the holidays, and this bottle caught my eye, which we'll talk about wines here in a little bit, but that bottle caught my eye, Noel, and I instantly thought, okay, it'd be really cool to have you on, talk about this. The theme would be these sweet wines, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about the style of the wines that you're producing there under Paso Port, because let's go over it. We're talking about fortified wines. We're talking about Solera style. We're talking about late harvest, and there's other versions too of sweet wines that can exist out there. But let's start with fortified. If you would talk to us a little bit about what fortified wines are, that little bit of a process, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. So fortified wines are wines that are fortified with brandy, and that is done during the fermentation process. So how we do it, we actually harvest the grapes during harvest, just like we normally would for table wines. So you don't want them overly sweet. You want them to be the same sugar level and brix level and chemistry that you would for table wine. Steve always says that if you can make a good table wine out of it, then he knows that he can make a nice port out of it as well. So they're fortified during during harvest, and they're not fortified on the skins. Sometimes ports are fortified on the skins. We actually press off our ports during fermentation, during the middle. Steve then calculates where the alcohol is and the sugar levels to determine when he needs to add the brandy and how much. So we do work with a number of different varieties. We do have several different port styles as well. So we have Ruby style ports. We have what we call vintage, which is what they do in Portugal. They do ruby and vintage ports.
So talk about ruby, talk about vintage. What's the difference between?
So ruby ports typically are barrel aged. They're non-vintage, so they're barrel aged anywhere between 3 to 5 to 6 years. That's Portugal. That's like Portuguese kind of standard. And so they're a combination of multiple barrel years, but usually a young port. Vintage ports are those that are vintage dated. Now, most of ours are vintage dated because I think here in the United States, we're so used to seeing a vintage on a wine that we just decided to start vintage or just do vintage dates on all of ours. So it means the vintage means it's the same grapes from the same year in that bottle, just like you have with a standard table wine. So rubies in Portugal are typically the ones that have no vintage on it. It could be a 2016, 17, 18 blended together that's been barrel aged for 3 to 4 years. And they're usually a little bit less expensive. Now, we do have a couple of those as well that we do. Sometimes typically for a wine club, processing or shipment, we'll bottle one independent, whereas majority of our ports are vintage dated, which means that they all come from the same year. And they're barrel aged between 2 to 3 years in the barrel before we actually bottle those. We do work with a number of different grape varieties. So we go from Zinfandel, Petit Syrah, Syrah, that's a blend that we do. We do work with traditional Portuguese grape varieties as well. And that's one of our flagship ports as well. We also have a white port, which is not that common here in the United States. You see them in Australia with the stickies. You also see white ports in Portugal, but not too many here in the United States. And ours is also barrel aged. It's a non-vintage, so it's barrel aged between 7 and 9 years. So you have those tawny characteristics in it with the nuttiness and the toffee kind of characteristics on the finish. We also do have a over 10-year-old tawny that's been barrel aged for between 10 and 12, 13 years. So we do a number of different styles of ports. We also have a rosé, which is fun. We came out with that about 2 years ago. It was a big hit with everybody, so we've continued it. That is going to have a different pinup on it. As Chris was showing you earlier, we do have the Noel that is a pinup. And so we do.
All of your wines have a pinup though, right? On the label, isn't that right?
All of our ports, yes.
Okay.
Just the ports, right.
Yeah.
They all have a different girl. And there's a story behind that. All of the girls are hand-drawn pinup girls specifically for our brand. We have an artist here in the Central Coast who has drawn all these girls for us. And it kind of went back to 2006 when there was an EU agreement that you could no longer use port on your label outside of Portugal, similar to what they do with champagne. So we had to kind of come up with something that would be more iconic that people would remember the label by, because we do have to call it a dessert wine on the label. We can't call it a port. And so Steve thought when he was thinking about this, because we did start the brand before the EU agreement, but we didn't have anything in bottle until after that. So we decided to come up with a pinup girl, and we hired a branding company to do the branding for Paso Port. And just so happened one of the members on staff does pinup on the side. And so each girl kind of represents the style of the wine in the bottle. So they all come from Steve and his imagination and what he wants to see on the outside of the bottle that kind of depicts the style of the wine on the inside. So each girl has a story behind it and how she was developed.
That's cool. I do have a lineup shot of some of their bottles that I'll share after a while here as we keep going. So Fortified, you're basically taking brandy and putting it in, stopping fermentation, putting it into this wine, and that's how, in essence, a fortified wine is created. Randy, you know, you do that as well, but you have a different format of creating what we're going to be tasting here in a little bit, called Monkey Shine, which is called Solera style. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Sure. It turns out that they really don't do a Solera style in Portugal, just as, you know, as Lola was talking about their methods and whatnot. But fine sherries in Spain are made in a Solera style in Jerez de la Frontera. And my wife and I spent lived 8 years in Spain, about 60 kilometers from Jerez de la Frontera. And so we decided and we actually started our sweet program with a product that we call Bootlegger, that was a sherry made from Viognier. But we thought, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could do a red style? We're not calling it a port, but a red style sherry and a Solera. So we did, and we started originally with a late harvest Zinfandel, and that was our base. And then every year that we make it, we bring a different varietal from our vineyard: Cabernet, Grenache, Petit Syrah, that ends up in the bottle. And we started this the very first year that we opened the winery in 2004. The oldest wine in here then is 16 years old. And the way we use our Solera is that we use a fractional part, and it ends up being about 16% of each of the barrels in our Solera. We take the wine out, and we put new wine in the barrels in the new year. So we have the oldest wine is still in there, and we never take any more than about 16% out in any given year out of any barrel. And the way we make it, though, is we make the best wine that we can first. So we'll start, say, with a Zinfandel or with a Cab, whatever it may be, and we'll make a 14.5% alcohol, dry, bone dry, that's going to get bottled as a varietal. We then take that and we fortify it with brandy of the same varietal that we have, that we distill in our distillery. And we bring it up to about 19% alcohol when we do that. And to add the sweetness, we use concentrate from the same varietal that we have in the bottle. So we're making the best wine we can. We fortify it with brandy of the same varietal, and then sweeten it to about 8.5% with concentrate from that same varietal, whether it's Zinfandel, Petit Syrah, whatever it may be. And we call it Monkey Shine because it's just a fun thing to have in the drink. And that's what, it's a real word in the dictionary called Monkey Shine. So,
and the first batch, remind me now, the first batch when you're creating this is when?
Zinfandel. Oh, when?
Oh, yeah, but date.
2004.
2004. So since 2004, you've basically been layering upon layering this through this wine. So in
That's
some
right.
way, shape, or form, there's little nuance that's still from 2004 all the way through.
Yeah, it's there. It's almost like it has all of the natural characteristics of each vintage then. So we can literally say that this is 15 years aged, if you will. 15 years aged. And
does it work that way though normally? Is that what happens in some wines?
Yeah, if you go through one of the sherry houses in Puerto de San or in Jerez de la Frontera, some of those fractional wines, some of those sherries are hundreds of years old. And in fact, they're known that the cask or the butt will start to deteriorate. They actually build a new barrel around the old barrel and then take out the pieces and finish the cask. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And by law they can take 33% out at any given time. And then put it back in.
And Randy, you said you take out what, about 16, 17%? Is that what you said?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
about 60%. So our Solera isn't that huge, but we have 12 barrels in our Solera. So we'll literally take a 12th out of each one of those barrels, bottle of barrels worth. If we're going to do a barrel's worth, we do 2, then we take, fractionally more. And then we fill up those barrels with new wine, with new brandy and new wine from the new year, and keep it that way. And what happens, because we're at about 19%, we've developed our own floor or our own yeast that is in the cask that protects it from, from oxidation. And it's just, it came and we feed it. So we don't top the barrels like you would do a wine, top it and put SO2 in it. There's never been any SO2 in this. It's always protected by the floor, the yeast that develops on top of the wine to keep it fresh.
Great. How long did it take you to get the floor and to be able to?
About 4 years.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
It took
Great.
a while, but then we figured out how to feed it. And so we're very careful when we fill the barrel up to not disturb the floor. We want that there. And it's
Just
what's nice is that it can handle 18 to 20%. And most floors are used in sherry in Spain at a lower alcohol level because floors usually don't like the higher alcohol. But we've got one in there that works really, really well for us.
Great.
Wow, cool, really cool. We'll come back and we'll be tasting these wines, of course, so we'll get a chance to talk about Monkey Shine and, of course, Noel. Next, I want to go to Kevin. Kevin, I'm curious, so late harvest, of course, now is just basically picking grapes that have been basically on the vine and basically bringing up their sugar count to a point that where the winemaker is comfortable with where they're at to be able to create this late harvest wine. I'm actually sipping on this wine right now. I swear it's a Sauterne. I swear, and I'm guessing that's like maybe what you were going for. Talk a little bit about this wine.
Sure. Well, sure.
And making late harvest.
Right. Gotcha. Well, it is a late harvest. We can't say it's Sauterne, but I would say it's a Sauterne inspired wine. Obviously, with this, unlike the previous 2 wines we were talking about with the port style wines, we don't fortify. So it's all just natural sugar that is coming from the grape that maybe the fermentation stops on its own accord, or we try and encourage it to stop at a certain point. But this goes back to thanks, Chris. So this wine is coming from one of our estate vineyards. We have 6 of them throughout the Paso Robles region. This one comes from our Jardine vineyard. So we have, again, 6 estate vineyards represented in 5 of the 11 districts within Paso Robles. This is actually what the grapes look like at the time of harvest. This is 2018 when just before we harvested the grapes. So we encourage a little bit of some canopies. We don't leaf as much. We try and get a little bit more humidity built up in the canopy so that we can get a little bit of botrytis as we're hanging the fruit out. So we don't get just a bunch of raisins at the end. Paso Robles, we're so dry and arid, we have very little mold mildew problems. So we do have to try and encourage Botrytis, the noble rot, which is one of the hallmarks in the Sauterne region for these type of wines that they're making there. So we gave it a stab in 2018 to try this. What inspired it is, I've always been interested in, Chris, as you mentioned, maybe early on we liked sweeter wines starting off. Maybe they got us interested into things. And I remember after I finished my internship at Chateau Petrus back in 1985, I had some time and I toured around the Bordeaux region, went into the Grabs area and went through Sauternes region as well. And I did try some very nice Sauternes. I always liked those, and I thought one day it'd be nice to make a style of wine like that. When I got here at Vina Robles, as you know, we're a family owned, two families. They're Swiss. Are one of our managing partners, Hans Mikkel, who's a Swiss expatriate who lives here in Paso Robles and has for a long time, runs the day-to-day operations. He has an affinity for some of these Sauternes as well. We were at dinner one night. He brought out a bottle of Rio Sec and we quite enjoyed it. We show up at a Christmas party the next year where we're trying to pick out wines that go with all the different dishes that we do. And we check most of the boxes, but when we get to the dessert course, it's always a little bit more challenging. And, you know, when there's things like apple tarts or fruits or just light cheeses, this is something perfect that a Sauterne would do. So since we didn't have it in our arsenal, we expensed going out and we found a Rio Sec and brought that to our Christmas party so everybody could share with the dessert and just enjoy that experience. So that got me thinking. Sauvignon Blanc is one of the varietals. It's our biggest white varietal that we do as a table wine. We have some great vineyards for Sauvignon Blanc, and so it was just a matter of picking a right spot that we thought we could get encouragement of a little bit of botrytis, and so we gave it a whirl in 2018, and I was happy to see that we did get the botrytis to develop if you hang it out long enough and try and just not take so many leaves off that you normally would for making other wines.
Explain a little bit about why botrytis does what it does for this style of wine. What is it so important, and what exactly is happening there?
Well, yeah, sure. First off, I mean, if you leave grapes on the vine long enough, I mean, you'll start to get some drying out, some desiccation. Being as El Paso is so dry, it's very likely, if you're not careful, you may get raisins by the time you're done, which is not what we're after. Botrytis, if you get the infection, it grows on the skin. It's a mold that grows on the skins of the grape. The spores will start to, as they take hold, they'll start to suck some of the moisture out of the grape berry itself, thus then concentrating both the flavors and some of the sugars and the acids in the grape itself. So if you get that, you get this richness, this concentration, and these honey-like characteristics that are, to me, a hallmark of some of those Sauterne wines that we like to see. And I would say it's probably that real honeyish character that you get from the botrytis.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what, when you think Sauterne or you think, you know, this style of wine, it's that honey characteristics that go so well with cheeses, like you were saying before, and kind of some other sweets that it can really complement and be a complementary versus a contrasting style pairing. We're talking about wines and sweet wines. Let's taste some wines, right? But Kevin, let's start with yours. It is white, and I'd love the rest of our guests, our panelists, to have a little taste as well.
Okay.
It's really interesting, by the way, everyone watching, the bottles. Okay, so here we've got this guy, and we've got Monkey Shine, and it'd be really weird if I was actually able to hold all three up, and everybody, where's that hand coming from? You've got the port style wine from Paso Port. They're all coming in these fun, funky little different shapes. At some point after we taste these wines, I'd love to talk about why the bottle. So, but Kevin.
Okay, good. So going through the wine, a little bit. Again, this is from our Jardine Vineyard. It's in the Estrella district. It's a little warmer site. Overall, it's great. It's very limiting, gravelly, sandy soil, very alluvial, well drained. So helps limit the vigor, which is good for balancing and getting good fruit development. So we usually get abundance of those tropical fruit tones with the Sauvignon Blanc varietal in the vineyard overall. So so again, I described that we left this out a good month to a month and a half after initial harvest. We didn't pick this until November of that harvest, which is pretty late. It was after there was actually a frost out there too. We started to lose some of the leaves. Actually, the picture I showed you of the grapes was maybe just a week before we did do harvest. So we hand harvest the clusters. We don't want to pick the clusters with too many raisins because that detracts from things. We don't want to pick clusters that don't have some botrytis to it, so we leave those out. We bring them to the winery. And then we will press them very, very lightly and just trying to get some of the juice established. Then we'll rotate the press, and the grapes are very cool. We pick in the very early morning. So as we want to rotate the press a little bit. We'll leave the remaining juice in contact with the skins a little bit, getting a little bit more extraction before we continue to drain. So it's a very long, slow pressing cycle, very, very light pressing, just to mitigate some of the astringency and some of those characters altogether. Cold settled, and then fermented with a very slow fermenting yeast. It's used in Champagne as in some of the base cuvées a bit, and I like it because it has a nice contributes to a nice mouthfeel as well. Very slow to ferment. It was about a month and a half, and during the fermentation, it starts to slow down, poop out. The alcohol.
Is that a technical term? Poop out, by the way?
Yeah, poop. You like that? Yeah. The yeast. It is. The yeast. Once you get enough sweetness and alcohol, the yeast start to find it very, very challenging to ferment. Normally, we don't want this to happen where it sticks, but in this case, we do like it for this late harvest wine to stick. It's about 12, just over 12% residual sugar.
Yeah.
With the wine, it's about almost 9% alcohol, 8.8% alcohol. So and if you look at some of the sauternes, they're somewhere just north of 10% residual sugar thereabouts. So I was looking to try and kind of make sure I got that richness with the wine when it did stick as well. So left it.
Have you guys did you taste through it, Lola?
Oh yeah, it's great. It's nice acid too. It finishes nice and clean.
Mm-hmm.
Not cloying and overly sweet. It's really nice.
And what I will say is we didn't have to add any acid either to this. It's Estrella. I think most people realize it's a slightly warmer site, but we do get some cool nights. And, with the concentration of the grapes during that time, it actually kind of concentrates some of the acids as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
what do you think, Randy?
Yeah, no, I really like it a lot. Lola's right on. It has a nice acidity. It has a nice mouthfeel. And I would have never guessed, I didn't look at the label. I would have never guessed it was only 8% alcohol. I mean, it's really very nice.
Yeah.
Really, really well balanced. It's really nice.
I can see this with a chocolate chip cookie.
There you go. Or, I like to tell like cheeses, the French suck this up with foie gras for sure. It's a big one with that dish. But I also like it just plain. My wife and I'll just sip it at the end of dinner just on its own. I call it dessert in a glass.
Yeah,
what do you guys think about these wines? I mean, is it a dessert wine? Is it an aperitif? Can it be both? When is it an aperitif versus a dessert wine?
we always tell people that, I guess way back in the over a decade ago or over 100 years ago, that they used to serve sauternes. I found an old menu with dinner. You know, it was like on a menu from a I don't remember where it came from, but I read it and I'm like, wow, they did these sweet wines and it was paired with every part of the meal. So they started with an aperitif, whether it's foie gras and a sauternes, but they had it paired through a bunch of different courses. It was really quite interesting.
Yeah.
I'd say start with port or start with sweet wine and end with sweet wine in a meal.
There you
Start
go.
off and end.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
Randy,
fact,
say something?
I've got, I just received a gift for our 50th wedding anniversary from some friends. And it's a 1970 Sauterne. And it looks, I can't wait to open it. It looks lovely. It's oxidized a bit, you know, I mean, it's turned a little color, but I think it's going to be amazing. And foie gras is what we're going to have with it as well.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think due to some of the acidity, these wines can age for quite some time as well. But yeah, I agree. I think you can have them, you know, before or after dinner. You know, if you have a kind of slightly sweeter dish in the midst, you could probably have that as well.
Kevin, have you tried any of these from the first wines that you started making there at Vina Robles? Have they aged over time?
No, well, are you saying 2018 was the first vintage we did?
2018 was, okay.
Yeah, it's the first vintage we did. So this is it. This is the inaugural
Oh, cool.
late harvest Sauvignon Blanc. We did one 2018. We did another one in 2019. 2020 was because it's so warm, what have you, just right around Labor Day. We didn't chance it. We didn't do it. You know, and it's not something for the faint of heart either, to try and plan to make these wines as a business model. By the time you're picking, you're losing half your crop due to, you know, either dehydration, desiccation, the birds, they come out sometimes too. You get the wine and the grapes into the winery, and your pressing yields are about 2/3 to a half as well. So it, you know, you lose some volume there. So at the end of the day, I mean, we'd have to charge, you know, we really should be charging 4 to 5 times the amount for what we do for our normal table wine. But I think it's a steal at typically, we charge $28 a bottle for this 500 ml bottle.
And it is delicious. Before we move on to Noel, I see this wine with a little bit of brie, cracker, and a chili honey little doppel with, you know, that little bit of spice that will go with this sweet, and things will, look at you moving on to your wine already. All right, that's a good cue. And so Lola, let's talk a little bit about Noel.
Well, Noel is, and I've got a bottle here as well. I'll show it again for you, Chris. So Noel is our Christmas blend, and it came about probably about 8 years ago, I think, somewhere around 2011, 2012. It came, Steve actually wanted to do a wine specifically for our club members. And so he wanted to do something that was special for the holidays. He goes back to Jermaine Raban when he used to have a Christmas brandy that he used to put out of seasonal brandy, and Steve really enjoyed that. So he thought he'd try to do something like that with port. And so Noel came out as a club member exclusive wine in the fall, I think of 2012 or 2011. And every year it's something different. So Noel, unlike the rest of our ports where we try to keep them consistent, all the different ones that we have year to year using the same grape varieties and whatnot, this one's a wild card. This is the surprise in the bottle. Nobody knows, no club members, no staff, nobody knows what's in the blend. So every year it's whatever reminds Steve when he's putting the blend together, it's whatever reminds him the most of the holidays or Christmas, whether it's a childhood memory, whether it's some kind of dessert that he had when he was young at Christmas time. So it's whatever he finds as that Christmas spice to him or flavor as he's trying to find barrels to put together. So it is a secret, nobody knows. And that's the nice thing about it. It's almost like the Christmas gift that you don't know what's inside the box until you open it up. So this one, you don't know what's inside the bottle until you open it up. And he does not give that information out to anybody, not even me. So I may see it sometimes during inventory, but I try to keep it quiet as well. So this one's completely different from any other time. It can have a little bit of white port in it. It can have any of the great varieties that we work with. It can have a little bit of our tawny port in it, any of our Portuguese, Zen. It's like I said, it's whatever reminds him the most of the holidays when he puts the blend together. So.
Yeah, and if anything, you know, it does taste like some form of a Christmas dessert. It really does. This is that's totally blows me away that you're saying that that's kind of what he is searching for, what he's trying to achieve.
Right.
Wine does do that. What do you guys think, Kevin and Randy?
Yeah, I get a lot of just really dark fruit coming through here. I'm not sure what varieties are in this. I don't want to kind of press Lola too much about that, given what you just said. But
I know what's in this one. I know.
I'm sorry?
I know what's in this one.
Okay.
I have to do the inventory for the business. So at some point I have to know whether it's at the end of the year or another point, but maybe when it's all sold out. This one is, we always sell out by Christmas. So we've got a few cases left for the rest of the year and that's it. So
we're lucky to have this right now.
We are very lucky. I did hold, because when you reached out to me, Chris, I did hold back almost 2 cases to hold back for people to want to purchase up until we sell out. So it's very popular. People buy it for Christmas gifts and stuff like that, which is really nice. It does make a nice Christmas gift.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I think, you know, speaking of, Chris said that you thought it reminded you of a Christmas dessert. I think that this, because I get some strawberry on it and a little bit of raspberry, I think this would be really, really good with trifle. Prime rib.
Yeah.
Mm.
Not a chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah. I think this is another one for dessert in a glass. It's just got nice rich fruit, dark fruits. It's got great mouthfeel, not just the sugar, but there's some creamy textures that kind of come with this too. So it makes it very long on the palate and finish, very, very smooth. There's also a little touch of like some caramel notes, caramel and a little vanilla as well. Makes it just perfect for a dessert wine.
Right. Might be a little bit of that, tiny bit of that tawny blended in. I don't know.
Not that it's a Christmas dessert, but I think tiramisu with this guy. I think the textures and the sweetnesses will all kind of meld and definitely complement each other. But I also so I grew up in an Italian household back east, and my grandmother used to make these cookies with this little red thing in the center. That red thing in the center right now, I don't know what it was, like a raspberry, strawberry, whatever, you know.
Oh, those, it's like almost like a jam or a jelly that they put in the middle of like a butter cookie.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
yeah.
That's what's in this glass right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's been years when it's been chocolate covered, you know, orange candies in the description, chocolate covered raspberries, a lot of chocolate. Trigo Nacional is a great variety, is one of the ones that we do in our Violetta. It throws a lot of chocolate notes, dusty cocoa powder in that. So he does use that quite a bit as a blender, but a lot of these have a chocolate undertone to them. Chocolate covered, what is it called? Those cookies that have, that are made from egg whites. So it's always one thing after another that comes across as a Christmas kind of. And it could just be a Christmas memory for him, that when he smelled something as he was going through a bunch of barrels, it sparked some kind of memory, and he'll pull that barrel and set it aside and save it for Noel.
Yeah, it is remarkable how Christmas in a glass this really is. So Anya, this is delicious. Thank you.
Very festive label too.
Yeah.
I love all those labels. I think I put it up here a second ago, but real quick, let's hear that one more time. Where here's another one of is that the Ruby?
That's our Ruby port. That's Zin based with a little Petite Syrah and a little Syrah in it. So, yeah.
And this also shows the other brands that you have with the distillery, along with Paso, which is
Fortified Wines
brand. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
How many total cases are you creating? Or I'm not sure with them being a different size bottle, but as far as for Paso Port, what's the production there?
Paso Port's in a 500 milliliter bottle. So we do about 1,500 to 1,800 cases per year of the port.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
It is. Yeah, it is. And you guys are pretty busy. So that's awesome. All right, let's get on over to the Monkey Shine. Looking forward to tasting this. Here's the bottle one more time with that little sock monkey that I think everybody has had at some point in time in their lives. And Andy, talk a little bit about this wine.
Yeah, this wine there's raspberry and blueberry jam with it, framed by a dark chocolate hint on the finish. And you can tell by even though this is 16 years old, it still has vibrant color, and it calls for a nice cigar at the end of the evening.
I do get some molasses a little bit of molasses or black on the nose a little bit. It's really nice. Or maybe brown sugar, a little bit of brown sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of brown sugar. Definitely that dark chocolate element that you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, are we able to pick something out? And this is almost a question also for you, Lola, as far as with some wines that are fortified, are you able to pick out that brandy? I mean, that sounds like it probably would be an unbalanced wine if you were able to pick out the brandy, but are you supposed to? Are you not? How does that work?
No, I mean, Steve's always said that the brandy that we try to use the same kind of grape varietal that we are fortifying with if we can, if the season allows us to do that. Just depends on the harvest. But you're putting in anywhere from 9 to 11%, depending on where the alcohol is at the time you're fortifying of brandy. So it has to be something that's going to marry up very well with the fruit and not overpower it. So you don't want it to come across as brandish. You want the fruit that you're trying to pull out for the port to be the dominant factor in the port. So you want something that's going to complement what you already have. You don't want something that's going to kind of take away. So you don't want it to be overpowering that much. You don't want it to be, because we use brandy, and obviously we make it ourselves. You can use a higher percent alcohol brandy that's just straight alcohol, which has no characteristic at all. It's just, it's over, 93, 94% alcohol, almost like using neutral spirits. But the brandy does add some flavor components. So it's important that you use something that has a nice quality. And Randy, you probably know this too. You have to use something that's got some good quality because it is going to affect what you have in the port as well. But you don't want it to be the dominant characteristic. You want the fruit to prevail, but you want it to complement whatever it is that you're trying to make out of it.
Yeah, I think Lola's exactly right. And that's why I mentioned that when we put a new wine in, the wine that goes in there is fortified with brandy from the same varietal. Because when you distill, if you distill 60 gallons of wine, you're gonna get only probably maybe 6 gallons of brandy out of it. So, and it concentrates all of those flavors and all those nuances in the varietal itself. So you want it to be an integral part of your, of our monkey shine, of our port, if you will, that it doesn't stand out. It just makes for a fuller and richer mouth feel for you. It's really important, I think, because in the day before we had our still, I would use neutral, you use a neutral brandy from Sunmade or Vidal, one of the folks out of the valley. And while it gave you the alcohol you were looking for, it didn't do anything for or to enhance your product. But now that we can do our own and make that happen, it really is a big difference. And that's what sets us apart. And as Lola was saying, even though you're only using 10 to 15 or whatever percent is going to go in there, that brandy that you're using, I mean, we sell an aged brandy for $58. I mean, it's expensive. So I think it really enhances the overall product.
So Randy, your place over there, you have your distillery. Sorry, I'm getting this set up here. You have your distillery that's actually in the basically next door to the tasting room. But now is your winery also in that same space where there's your wife?
It used to be, but it's back in our barrel room now. We started to expand and to grow, and we were doing 2,000 cases a year of wine, and today I'm making 12,000 cases of wine. And some of it's for a different brand or a different label than Red Souls. It's actually called Oakdale Road, but so we put that back in the barrel room. We expanded, we put in some more stainless, and what we have in there now, you'll go in and the still is there, and we have casks in there that have wine in them to be distilled. And then what we do is and they're all varietals. So once we make that wine, that spirit, we then put the spirits back into the barrel that that the wine came out of. So that then ages in a neutral barrel now that had, say, Syrah in it, or Petit Syrah, or Cab. Mm-hmm. And it helps, I think, to then give us more integration of those flavors in the brandy itself as well.
Randy, you told me before you wanted to take a quick second to talk about Bootlegger, though, too. So we have an image of it up here.
Yeah, Bootlegger. It's unique in that it's 100% Viognier. It always has been Viognier, and it started as a late harvest Viognier. And for years as we developed the Bootlegger and got the floor to go, and we did a Solera. We have 10 barrels of this wine in the Solera. We used to actually sell the new wine from the new year as a late harvest that was called the Vamp in the day. We've since stopped that, and we concentrate on the Bootlegger itself. And it's one of those fun things to have and to do, and people love it. So, and it more represents an Olorosa sherry than it does anything else.
Yeah. Cool. And we definitely one of these days need to sit down with one of those bottles and go through that. Speaking of other wines and other things that we do, I mean, we're getting along on time here, but I want to make sure, though, Kevin, you had an opportunity, and I'm going to share the screen here again, to talk a little bit more about what Vina Robles does in general, as we're kind of moving a little bit away from sweet wines as we're coming kind of near the end here. But you were saying that, I mean, this is kind of like a little project that you do on the side, but really you guys you're kind of a cab house maybe, or how would you depict Vina Robles?
Well, we're Vina Robles. The crux of Vina Robles really relies on our estate vineyards. Again, there are 6 different estate vineyards across 5 of the districts in Paso Robles. Let's back up a little bit while you were there with the winery shot or so.
I should be caught up by now.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, so there's a lot of diversity in Paso Robles. A lot of varieties can grow well. Certain areas may have some different characters that certain varieties do a little better in certain places than others. So we pick along these estate vineyards to see what grows well and put together our wines. what I find that grows obviously very well and markets very well from Paso Robles is our Cabernet. It makes up almost about half of what we do, our estate cab. Most of it coming from a couple of our vineyards, our Huero vineyard, which straddles the El Palmar and Geneseo district. And then it's a good portion from our crust.
You're sticking. I think Kevin just
Uh-oh.
stuck there.
Oh,
So while he's sticking and unsticking and very apropos to drinking stickies,
Good wines.
And it grows incredibly well here in Paso Robles. That's a big second to our red wine profile that we do. It's just all those good things that people like in Cab, if they try our Petit Syrah, they might even like it better. It's just very lush, a lot of berry fruit. We don't have a lot of tannin overhang with our Petit Syrah. It can plague the variety. I've seen it when I was up at Inglenook, Rubicon, and in Napa Valley. Sometimes the Petit Syrahs, we leave it on the skin just 4 days and it's already too tannic. Here it's just more beautifully balanced, great flavors, just creaminess of palate structure. So those, you know, I really like those type of wines that we're doing. We have a red blend we called Arborist. It's basically Petit Syrah, Syrah, Grenache, and maybe one or two other red wines from year to year that kind of fit the blend. This last year it's Tanat. Those are our big three, and then we do our whites is Sauvignon Blanc is our biggest white wine. It grows exceptionally well here in the Paso Robles area as well. Again, that's mostly from our Jardine vineyard, like our late harvest Sauvignon Blanc. That's where that's from as well. We do some small little bits of some other varieties like Viognier, a Vermentino. We do an Albarino. We even do a small little bit of Verdejo, but those are mainly small tasting room items. Some of these varieties, even though we like them, we realize they're not quite ready for prime time, but they're there. Yeah. They're there for those who dare to look. And I would encourage people to, if they're interested, we're not open now for the tasting room. The retail room's open Monday through Saturday, but the tasting room, we're waiting to get through the Christmas holidays and trying to observe the government mandates, but with that and trying to keep COVID at bay. But a lot of these small little things that we do, there's some interesting points that we think grow well here in Paso Robles that are kind of one-offs. And this late harvest Sauvignon Blanc is just something that we love to do stuff like this. It's mainly for our own interest and to share to people.
And I will say that with Vina Robles, they do have a lot of different wines there, and there's always something kind of interesting that you can discover there. And so I would say probably going to their website is going to be a really great way to discover a little bit more. Lola, Paso, can we talk a little bit about that brand, the still wine brand? What is that focused on?
Picasso, actually, we started with some red table wines made from the Portuguese grape varieties, since we were already getting Portuguese grape varieties for our ports. So we went back in 2006 was our first vintage of Portuguese 100% Touriga Nacional. Then we went into a blend with that, with Touriga Nacional, Tinto Cal, and Suzal. Those are all three Portuguese grape varieties that we sourced right here from a vineyard, Glen Rose Vineyard, right here in Paso Robles that we've been working with. Steve's actually been working with it since the late 90s. But we also have some Cabernet blends. We made a blend of those Portuguese. We call it our Iberian blend. So it's similar to those wines you'd be getting out of Portugal as our table wines. They do have some really nice table wines coming out of Portugal these days. We also have some Zinfandel. We have Grenache. Our estate vineyard produces a little bit of Cabernet, has 3 Rhone blends, Syrah, Mourvedre, and Grenache. So we do a blend of that as well. We do have some white wines that we do in Albarino. We've done a Grenache Blanc. We haven't done one in the last few years. We do a Verdelho as well. Very small quantity though, just like Kevin was saying, it's only tasting room. It's actually just about sold out, I think, if not sold out by now. Malvasia Bianca, we do a Chenin Blanc from a vineyard here in Paso. It's all dry farm Chenin, real small lot of Chenin, and I think a couple other wineries get from that block as well, but not too many. It was planted back in the 70s. It just makes a terrific white table wine. We also have a rosé from our vineyard, our estate vineyard.
So all three brands, all three of you really make a lot of different wines, obviously on all different scales, but a lot of different wines. And I think that's such a testament to our area. We often talk about how we have 60 different varieties or over 60 different varieties that are grown in our area. Hearing you talk a little bit about the Portuguese varieties, and then Kevin, you guys with everything that you do there, but Petit Syrah being that kind of secret ingredient. And then Randy, getting back to you, you were a source vineyard for a little while as well, before even having your own brand. Isn't that right?
That's right. And it turns out that the reality is that we're growers first, and then we're a winery second. We planted this vineyard in the Willow Creek district off Oakdale Road for Robert Mondavi in 1991, and have continued to provide Constellation with fruit from here. Now goes to Prisoner up in Napa to the Prisoner program, and we have Cabernet. Half of the ranch is planted Cabernet, but we also have Syrah, Viognier, Chardonnay, Petit Syrah, Grenache, Tempranillo, and Mourvèdre. We call it Mataro, and Zinfandel. And I make wine from each of those varietals every year. So we have a full plate of things that we do.
Yeah, and I have a bottle of that I'll be enjoying this weekend.
The Mataro, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I just got to figure out what I'm going to make with it. So thank you so much for joining us again on another Zoom Hangout with Paso Wine. We will be coming back to you again starting January 7th with weekly shows where we'll once again be hanging out with Paso Wines winemakers and other personalities of our region. I don't know what the 7th show will be, but I will pitch the 14th, January 14th. It's going to be a really fun, wait to see it, unveiling of the wine industry person of the year for the Paso Robles wine region, where we will be sitting down with those people who have yet to be announced, but we'll be sitting with them and enjoying what they have to share about their history in the region. But stay tuned, go to pasowine.com to see what is coming up, because we're going to keep going with these Zoom Hangouts. As long as you guys keep coming and tuning in, we'll keep doing them. And once again, if you have ideas of a show, we'll try to fit it in. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Lola. Cheers to you. Appreciate you being on the show. Have a great Christmas. Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Chris. Thanks.
Cool.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for being on.
Good to see you guys.